From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined, as always, with our super producer, Dylan, the Tennessee pal Fagan. Most importantly, you are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. What's cooler than being cool?
Nothing.
Ice cold.
Okay. I would have also accepted ice cold.
All right now, fellas. What's a shout out to Outcast and Andre, obviously, since we are based in the fair metropolis of Atlanta. What's a time you guys felt cool? Not physical temperature-wise, 69, nice, but more like intriguing, suave, having drip.
All day, every day, baby.
No, yeah, I like that. No, I like that.
Not the case. I do my best. It is weirdly, uncomfortably important to me to seem cool, and I think I often fail at that, so maybe I need a new thing.
Guys, according to all the writings, the most uncool thing you can do is consider yourself to be cool.
Exactly. If I'm not mistaken, there was a Simpsons episode that dealt with this, and I think it was determined that it's one of those if you have to ask things, to point out something that Dylan said off mic. But I think Marge gave the example of, do cool people know if they're cool? Or that was the question that was posed.
Right. It's funny because in the modern parlance, the nature of coolness can be a bit like the Tao or Zen. You know, for some folks, it might seem effortless. For others, trying to be cool or even caring about being cool in the first place are inherently uncool. It's very much like, what's the old Tao quote? When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be.
Ooh, it's about potential, I guess, right? I'll tell you who invented cool, technically? Miles Davis.
Jazz musicians.
He had an album called The Birth of Cool, which, I mean, one could argue that cool definitely surrounded the idea of being a jazz musician, the Hep Cats and all that.
I heard it was Lester Young.
I'm excited to talk about the history as well. But yeah, because modern cool is a little bit different. Kidding. Drastically different from the original idea of cool. And it's kind of difficult to define, right? There's something aspirational and ephemeral about coolness. For most of history, we've thought of the idea of coolness as this subjective thing. But now, as we alluded to in a previous strange news conversation, I think, modern science claims to have solved the conundrum, or has it? It sure would be cool if it did.
But would it even know?
Yeah.
If it were.
And why would it matter to us what is or isn't cool? And how could that be weaponized against you?
It doesn't. I don't care. I'm above
it. We also use the word cool pretty often in this episode, which might be a two-parter. So spoiler, folks, you might run into some semantic satiation.
We're going to get to that too, I'm sure, but not to mention that the word cool, just as like in its use, is often like the least remarkable thing possible. Like, that's cool. Yeah, okay, sure. Why not?
Sure would be cool if it did. Here are the facts. Since the dawn of civilization, people have yearned to be cool. Like we mentioned at the top, the specifics of what makes a person, place, or thing considered cool in modern parlance, it's changed over time. But I think most of us agree it's one of those, you know it when you see it types of phenomena.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, being cool often meant that you're not a narc and that you're not going to like report someone's illegal activities to the fuzz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in previous iterations, being cool or like the earliest writing of coolness as a sociological or personality concept, it dwelt on the idea of emotional restraint. It wasn't so much about swagger as it was being, civil but contained, not easily shaken.
Keep your cool.
Keep your cool. Exactly. And it's interesting because it goes back to this old idea of linking temperature and emotion. And that's why we still sometimes say someone is being cold to us in English. If someone seems dismissive or they're purposely ignoring you or they're like going out of the way to not laugh at your jokes. That's being cold.
Well, even the term like he cooled to her. You know what I mean? Like, that means like over time you kind of become disinterested or aloof towards someone or something.
Or we've all seen when someone comes in hot. Oh,
totally not cool.
Mm-hmm. Someone's heated up. Yeah. So this concept evolved, and it changed once again, as we were talking about a little bit at the top. What we call modern cool originates back in the jazz eras, right? The 30s, the 40s, where there were these legendary musicians that we mentioned who had this concept, this persona, this iconic aesthetic of coolness. And later historians will argue that there are strong potential roots in coolness or emotional restraint as a survival mechanism during chattel slavery in the United States.
Well, let's talk about the guy that coined "that's cool," Lester Young. This is a jazz musician in the 1940s. There is a history, a tradition of black singers and performers who would go on stage, and there was an expectation of, and almost, I don't know how to describe it, a societal pressure to smile on stage as a person of color, to look non-threatening when you're on stage, and to perform your music. And Lester went on stage. He would wear sunglasses in the club at night, and he refused to smile at the audience. He would get up there, he would play his badass music and just be stoic almost, in that you are here experiencing my art, and I don't have to do the crap that you want me to do to be able to do this. And that goes back, right, as you're saying, Ben, to all of the pressures and the stuff from chattel slavery.
Yeah, it's also important to distinguish here that Lester Young at this point is not being hostile. He's not being rude. He's being confident and skilled and aloof. He has autonomy, and that's one of the big factors we're going to talk about.
But it's got a purpose, right? It's defiance. Ultimately, that's what that is.
And confidence, exuding confidence.
Yeah, like we're saying, confidence, but autonomy is not necessarily hostility. You could say it's a quiet defiance because he's not out there, burning flags or something, but he's refusing to play the game or comply to the pressures put upon him by a predatory social dynamic.
Well, and I'm looking forward to getting around to kind of the current state of cool, because it requires discussion of things like cringe, which I very much look forward to getting y'all's take on.
And anti-cool, right?
Yes, precisely.
So Exhibit A being stuff like Crocs, for an innocuous example. One important thing that, I think if we take nothing away from this conversation, we should take this away. Corporations have weaponized cool, or the concept of it, to great and damaging advantage. Of course, if you're most people, you want the people you encounter to like you. You want them to respect you. And being cool has become an umbrella term to describe that existence or that perception. And if we want to make things more interesting, we can consider that every conceivable demographic, every imaginable social group or industry or community, from cradle to the grave, has their own internal definitions of coolness. Like one example would be when we were in the Middle East earlier, and we learned that certain styles of gutra or kafia, head coverings, right? They can be indicative of origin or social identification. And there are some ways to style them that are like the newer, cooler style.
I mean, if you're Billy Madison, pee and pants is cool.
Right. I'm surprised.
Call me Miles Davis, he says, back around to that.
There we go. This shows us there are countless examples. Your friend group or separately your coworker community all have their own versions of what is or is not considered cool. And these ideas the credit doesn't transfer. These ideas don't translate to other social groups. We were talking off mic about something that is so common. If you have children, you might recognize that some stuff that seems amazing to your kids might seem silly and incomprehensible to your peers, or indeed to children in other cultures. Which is baffling to me because, when corporations sell the hot Christmas toy or whatever in the United States, it's advertised as universally cool. Thou shalt get the Elmo, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny though. The whole corporatization of cool often comes with, over time, a backlash as well.
Yes, 100%. And we can encounter that backlash in microcosm as well, can't we? So for you now listening, stuff you think is cool, whether that's a genre of music, a type of film, a mode of dress, I think most people can admit that's just as subjective as any other aesthetic or opinion. The clothing that the mods wore back in the day was not objectively the last word on clothing. It was just a way for that community to connect, right? To recognize each other.
The mods, like in
like
a chat?
the hep cats, like the mods being, I think, more of a 60s kind of like biker kind of culture.
Yes,
Not
yes,
biker,
yes,
but like
yes.
sporty biker type cats.
Got it.
Although I do like the idea of a secret cabal of moderators who have their own fashion guidelines. That's funny.
yeah.
And,
Moderators are inherently ephemeral. I don't think of them having any physical presence whatsoever.
I guess it depends on the mode of your mod. And we don't like to yuck other people's yums, as our pal Chuck was wont to say, but we can admit that as people move through their lives, their ideas, your idea of what cool means or what makes something cool evolves. And it's defined by your current and past social groups and what they prize and what you have learned from them and how it has taught you to agree with or disagree with those social dynamics. Like, look, let's be honest. It's birthday month as we're recording it. It's August 4th, 2025. And I think it's fair to say, my guys, that every one of us has encountered something we thought was super duper cool in ages past when we were younger. And now we look back and think, I don't know if that was cool.
Well, like, for example, when we were all lads of a certain age, things like chain wallets and Jinko pants were considered cool. And then they kind of fell out of fashion. And it became one of those fashion choices that was sort of looked at as sort of like absurd. But guess what, y'all? Hugely back in a massive, no pun intended way with the kids.
I was going to say, don't get our pal Tennessee started on Jinkos. Dylan and I, a while back, I can't remember how long ago it was, we actively tried to buy Jinkos, but it was after the pendulum swung back and they were too expensive.
Totally. And like, for example, like things like bands, for example, Steely Dan used to be considered like the music of the man, the Squares or whatever. Now, Steely Dan has been reassessed and there are tons of young hip bands that their primary influence is Steely Dan. And dear friend of the show, Frank Mulheron, has a theory that that's on the way to happening with the Dave Matthews Band.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
Oh, I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, Dylan? What do you think about that?
I'm going to have to personally reassess this myself.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, do it. Do it. Go back to bartender.
But that's the funny thing.
Yes.
Lay under the table and
Crocs
dream.
were originally the dopiest thing you could possibly wear. And then they all of a sudden started getting co-opted by like fashion brands and like influencers and stuff. Or Carhartt, which once was like a workman's kind of outfit, has been completely co-opted by fashion types. It's just so fascinating to look at all this stuff on a long enough timeline.
Yeah, you can see it with authors as well, like Stephen King. Who has swung back and forth in critical perception. That goes back to I love that we're bringing Crocs back up again, because I think we'll return to them a third time as we get deeper here. It's strange because maybe through this lens, it's best for us to start defining cool by saying it's the quality of a person, place, or thing that is compatible with admirable social norms, which is a very accurate but very uncool way to define it or to phrase it. And because the reason it feels uncool to define it that way is because it inherently argues that we're all much more susceptible to social pressures and influences than we'd like to think. Human nature often seems to be a battle between wanting to be that maverick, wanting to stand out, to be noticed, to be praised, to be respected, while at the same time yearning to be accepted, yearning to somehow fit in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it, guys. We're three guys in our 40s now. Think about what it was when you're a kid in middle school, in high school, especially up until the age of like 23, let's say, which is one of the markers that's used in a lot of these studies and a lot of the way people talk about this. That need to fit in just enough so you're not going to get picked on, that need to be a part of the crowd, but you want to be an individual too. That whole thing is so strong and continues to be strong and has always been, I would say, extremely strong, because you want to be yourself and an individual, but you don't want to stick out enough so that the other kids are going to throw stuff at you.
And does that vary culture by culture, right? The threshold of pleasure there. That's the question, right? It's such a stellar observation. And we know that if we understand that internal conflict, and we know that the concept of coolness is so fluid, ephemeral, changeable, then how on earth can a person become cool in general? How can we define that? Well, the smaller you go, the more specific our definition can become. You go to any social group, doesn't matter what they're doing, on a granular level, and you will quickly identify modes of dress, communication, recreation, ideological concepts that qualify as cool in that group. And sometimes they're defined by exclusivity, right? Being cool within this group includes a rejection of norms from outside groups, a way to differentiate us from them. I think I haven't seen this film in so long, but it makes me think of childhood bully cliques, like the Mean Girls, for instance, if you guys remember that one.
With their hench people. Yeah.
With the hench folk. And even on very small groups, right? You can see bullying and pressure and attempts to define coolness, or certain religious orders, right? That can be really interesting in this milieu, because it can be cool to follow the rules, right? Which sounds pretty uncool if you're a high schooler.
Well, and speaking of historical kind of assessment, like, I'm always really fascinated by folks that in their time were completely uncool, or considered outliers, or considered like almost enemies of the state even. Like, Jesus is a good example.
That's a good example.
But then over time, they're reassessed and they become an era-defining presence of what cool is. There's actually a King Missile song called Jesus Was Way Cool. Do check that out. It's very appropriate for today's episode.
Well, it's because societies kind of get in ruts, I would say, over time, to where the normal thing is totally cool with everybody in the moment. But then you look back and you go, oh, wow, we really messed that up, didn't we? But you don't get that until you've been through something, which is, I think, to me, guys, as we record this on the first day back to school after summer of 2025, it feels like that kind of thing is happening a lot when you look at just some of the things I know at least my son's friend group is into, and some of the things that are considered cool are just going to be fully rejected in a couple of years. It's only going to take a couple of years.
Yeah. There's an argument that, the cadence of the cycle, or the frequency of the cycle, is decreasing, right? And there are some pretty astonishing social observations about that, and investigations and studies. With the idea of religious orders, you would aim to be the most read up on spiritual teachings, cleaving closest to the accepted norms of behavior and morality, mentioning that because it can lead to a ton of problems. Maybe a story for another evening, but after we've scoped it specifically, what happens when we scope out and see the forest for the trees, as it were? If we put aside the relatively easy task of determining coolness for specific groups, could we scientifically figure out coolness in general? Could we use that knowledge to improve our own social standing? Oh, deep water.
And will we be able to see when someone's trying to convince us that something is cool?
And will we learn the difference between cool and good? We're going to pause for a word from our sponsors, and we'll dive in. Here's where it gets crazy. Maybe you can scientifically define coolness. In academia, we often joke there's a study for everything. This is no exception. A recent study came out called Cool People, which is a cool name for a study, just objectively. Oh, come on. I think
all right, I'll take it.
study names can be so long by
Nothing
necessity.
less cool than a study about being cool. One could argue this episode inherently is the least cool thing we've ever done, but I am here for it, y'all.
So this is published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, and it's by 3 marketing professors, Todd Pizzuti, Caleb Warren, and Jinjae Chen. They set out to quantify exactly what it means to be a cool person. And to your point, Noel, yes, you could argue that's chasing cool, and you could argue that makes it uncool inherently. But it is fascinating. They sat down, they said, okay, we want to see whether it's possible to figure out whether there are specific universal personality traits defining coolness, whether they're constant across human culture, or whether instead they vary place to place. And even more intriguing, they asked, is being a cool person the same thing as being a good person? Which I think we'll all be interested to explore. Maybe first we pop under the hood and see how they even started working this out.
So the professors realized a couple things real quick. That getting too specific with your stuff, possessions, material goods, your physical appearance would not be particularly helpful, since those traits can widely vary across different civilizations. So instead, they chose to look into personality traits and values.
Yeah, and let's go to Todd Pizzuti. He explains this in a great article in The Conversation and several other interviews that you can find online. And he said specifically this. He said, quote, "We asked nearly 6,000 people from 12 countries to think of someone they personally knew who was cool, not cool, good, or not good. And then we asked them to describe that person's traits and values using validated psychological measures." Which to me is funny, because this is not how it happened, but I'm imagining cold calls, like how here we will get cold calls for surveys, especially around election time. I'm imagining one of the research assistants just randomly finding the phone number of someone in China or South Africa and saying, "Hi, would you, can you think of a person that you would describe as cool, not cool, good, or not good?"
Call me with that question all day long. Just stop asking to buy my house. So over it.
Oh, God. Yeah.
God.
It's
what
happening.
list did I get on?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so these guys spent more than 5 years digging into this, 2018 to 2022, which means they worked through the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. It was very difficult at times, right, to gather the data. Therefore, they spoke to folks from 13 places, but 12 countries: the US, Australia, Germany, South Africa, Spain, India, Turkey, Mexico, Nigeria, South Korea, China, Chile, and Hong Kong. And so Hong Kong was kind of bracketed off as its own thing, but they didn't want to get in trouble with China. So 12 countries, 13 cultural regions.
And these are very, very different places, which is a great thing for this study, right? You're not going to have a ton of bias simply for one culture that is deciding what cool is. They were trying to find what are the commonalities between all of these different places with all the different humans and the different traditions. What is cool? I love this idea.
It's a cool idea. Like you were saying, Matt, it's no secret that these are all incredibly unique places. And each of these places, indeed, is large enough to have its own variety of distinct and sometimes contradicting social groups. India is the world's most populous, crowded country. The United States, up until recently, was one of the world's top exporters of culture, of coolness, right? And so it's completely possible, they said, that coolness may be way different in one place than it is in another, meaning that what makes you cool as heck in Spain may not be making you a cool person in Mexico, even with the common language. So they said this is completely possible that coolness varies, except it isn't. And boy, howdy, these folks came across a real bag of behavioral badgers.
Give us the straight poop, Ben.
Oh, the straight poop. Yes. Sorry, you guys still got in my head with that conversation about Josh Clark and healthy poops.
Oh, yeah. A ropey S.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, I was listening back to that episode, and there's a moment where I finally realized what shooting ropes means.
Oh yeah,
and we kept it in. So
it's Spider-Man. That's what Spider-Man does.
That's what Spider-Man does. So these guys are leaning on the previous research, which is quite robust. There's a lot of stuff out there about how to quantify, or I guess how to really diagram and understand personalities, what makes people tick. Of course, social sciences are always going to be imperfect. Everybody admits that, but it is worthwhile, and you could say mission critical research. So they leveraged something called the Big Five personality trait model. It's a fun name, and that was one of their the bedrock foundations for how they started constructing these questions.
For sure. And they found that time and time again across various demographics and cultures that everyone around the world could agree on 6 key factors that make a person cool. And these were folks who are extroverted, hedonistic, adventurous, open, powerful, and autonomous. And y'all, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this conversation around the idea of cool just kind of involves living your life and just sort of taking things as it comes and learning and having your eyes open to experience. And aside from the hedonistic bit, a lot of this really tracks for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The hedonistic bit matches up perfectly with Brat and Brat Summer.
That's true, but we all agreed off mic that there's something to be said about some of these things feeling not entirely cool, and that there's a difference between something that is genuinely, cool and something that is maybe a bit of a flash in the pan or a bit of a fad or a trend.
Or a bit manufactured from the top down, a bit ersatz and insincere.
Industry plants.
Right. So let's walk through these real quick. Extroverted. Are you outgoing? Do you tend to start conversations? This doesn't just mean being loud. It also means that when you engage with people, you are also actively listening to what they have to say. You're not just talking at them about yourself or the information you want to convey. You're making a communal space of equal exchange.
Hugely important. This hedonistic part is fascinating to me because you point out, Ben, in the outline that the idea does often get a bad rap. We think of debauchery and unchecked, unhinged partying, but that does not necessarily enter into this particular way of looking at the concept of the personality trait.
Yeah, hedonism as a concept, as a word, even, it gets a bad rap, as you said, Noel, especially when America goes through one of its cyclical puritanical tantrums. But I love that you're pointing out hedonistic doesn't mean this person is out banging everybody or constantly partying. It means instead holding a deep appreciation for pleasurable things and seeking them out. So anything that you enjoy, it can be an act of hedonism. And cool people openly and enthusiastically enjoy stuff. They also effectively communicate that enjoyment to others. They share it. So a cool person doesn't just say, I guess poetry's okay. If they like poetry, instead, they'll take it a step further. They'll say, I love poetry. Here is a specific poem I think you will enjoy as well. They include you in the hedonism.
Well, they want to know about your appreciation of it rather than just telling you about their appreciation of it.
Well, they love it so much that they want to share it with others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we could all argue that there's a fine line between that type of enthusiasm and someone who's a know-it-all and constantly telling people what they should or should not like. And I think we also know that there's no quicker way to turn somebody off from something than taking that approach.
Yeah, yucking a yum, telling people what they don't like what they should not like is an uncool thing.
Insufferable. Yeah. It's the worst. And I've known people like that. I think we all have throughout our lives. And often it is the hallmark of maybe someone who's a little younger and not fully set in their confidence. And they feel the need to couch everything with negativity because it's an ego-driven thing. It's a way of saying, I am better because I know that this other thing sucks. But as you get a little older, I feel at least I'm less interested in telling people what isn't good, and I'm more interested in telling people what I'm excited about if something comes up that I think they would very much enjoy.
Yeah, I like sharing stuff. I hope everybody does, sharing specific things based on what you have learned about a person, because to me, one of the coolest things is learning, right? Learning from people, hearing them out. Like, what do you think? I've sent Noel weird questions about synths because you know more about it. You know way more about it than I do. And I like to learn stuff. And you're really, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time and your acumen when I'm like, hey, what is this? How's this work?
Well, and, Ben, I'm not as much of a reader as I would like to be, and it's something that I want to be more of. So when it comes to asking for recommendations on books or poetry or things like that, I turn to you because this is something that you are incredibly passionate about and that you're also very generous about with, your knowledge and your sharing. And you know me, therefore I know that your recommendations are going to land, and they always do.
James Joyce love letters.
100%. Little farty fart ones.
And I like turtles.
Yeah, I like turtles. No, but Matt, you like video games. You like culture. There's so many things that you're into that I'm not nearly as into. And I'm always surprised and excited to learn things that you're passionate about because 9 times out of 10, I'm going to find something in those things that's going to do it for me.
Boom.
Yeah. I would also say that, Matt, in particular, I have seen you have these amazing in-depth conversations with people just from off the street. Noel,
that's so true.
I'm not making a joke.
No,
Why are you laughing?
I'm looking at the 2 Daniels. Sorry about that.
Yes, Dylan sent us the tale of 2 Daniels. There's Daniel, and then there's the cooler Daniel. The cooler Daniel has sunglasses. So the cooler Daniel, therefore, in this meme would be seen to be more adventurous. That's a defining trait. Cool people do stuff. They take risks. They travel to new places. They pick up new hobbies. If you have an extra ticket to something like, say, a flamenco show, random example, then a cool person is more likely than average to get an invitation from you and say, what's flamenco? Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I'll go. Yeah.
And cool people do their homework too. I mean, they want to fully entrench themselves in a culture when they're traveling. They want to find the off the beaten path stuff. Ben, I can't wait till I get to go to Japan because I'm going to have such a wealth of recommendations from you and your time spent there. But like, cool people are great traveling buddies.
Yeah, hopefully we can all travel together. Everyone right to the accounting department. We need to make
We are about to be on the high seas together, which is funny and weird and exciting.
Join us on the Virgin Voyages True Crime Cruise this October.
Mm-hmm. October 10th through the 15th. We'll be hanging out with our pals Betrayal and Buried Bones. We also want to thank a very kind fellow conspiracy realist who wrote in and proposed an alternative pun, not just conspira cruise, but a cruise-spiracy. I can't believe we missed that one. That was pretty well done. So this leads us to this idea of being adventurous and embracing stuff. It leads us to the idea of openness. These are very closely related, right? Openness in this study measures creativity, curiosity, willingness to entertain new ideas. The world says, hear me out. The cool person says, heck yeah, hit me.
Well, I think when the term like square gets thrown around, if anybody still says that, because it's clearly the 50s, it usually refers to closed-mindedness, someone that's not willing to listen or someone that's not willing to open themselves up because there's a certain sense of, I know everything already. Mm-hmm. And that's inherently uncool.
It is, yeah.
So the dude is very, very cool.
Dude is super open. That guy is super open. And also, to that point, there's this idea of openness as in evaluating new information or a thought at its objective level, right? Like avoiding the tendency to say, I already don't like this person, so I'm going to reject their idea because of where it comes from. Open people are far less likely to do that. And that's something that anybody can struggle with. Okay, the next trait is, oh, guys, this one's a bit of a sticky wicket, but it is one of the 6 key traits of being cool. It's being powerful. I'm on the fence.
This one threw me. Yeah. No, I'm fully on board with hedonism since we've drilled down into it a bit. It's more like kind of a kingly, what's the word? Like Falstaffian kind of love, joie de vivre or whatever. But powerful.
Eat, drink, be merry.
100%. Yeah. Powerful is sticky for sure, because we know that absolute power corrupts absolutely, maybe not every time. There are certainly magnanimous powerful folks out there. But it's tricky, and I don't know that I necessarily agree that this is a requirement. But I guess it also figures into the next one, which is autonomy. If you have power, you're able to self-direct your destiny and share that with others.
I think this one is directly linked with that concept of autonomy, because to me, someone who is cool isn't just doing what they're told by somebody else. They have the ability to decide what they're going to do. Like theoretically, that's what I think this is getting at. Somebody who has the power to go and do what they want. Because if you want to be adventurous and open and you want to view the world in these ways and seek hedonism in certain ways and be extroverted, you have to, again, I think autonomy ends up being probably the most powerful thing that's on here. And I think powerful is directly linked to it.
Yeah, this is all a Venn diagram, right? Because powerful in this sense, in a positive sense, it means, do you have sway and influence in your social groups? Do you have a meaningful place in those dynamics? And importantly, do you appear to be fair in those dealings? Do you have the riz as well? This directly, as you were saying, leads to that final trait. Also, Noel, to your point about power past a certain threshold leading to non-ideal behaviors, it reminds us everyone should check out our previous episode, Does Being Wealthy Make You a Bad Person?
Absolutely. And it's a tricky question, and it's a philosophical question.
Mm-hmm. It is, but there's another study about playing Monopoly that I think we all had a lot of gallows humor fun with. You guys remember that one?
I don't know if I do. Remind me.
Yeah. What was the Monopoly thing?
That's the one where they give people, they take these students. I'll be vague here, just quick summary. Yep. They take the students and they have one group of students who plays Monopoly the regular way, but some of the other players are given a bunch of advantages. They get to roll more die each time, more dice, whatever you prefer. They start off with more money, and then they have an interview at the end. Spoiler, Monopoly's a broken game. And at the end of that game session, they asked the people who won, who are all the folks with the advantages, they said, do you think you won because of all the advantages you have? And the majority of them said, I mean, I could see that, but not really. I'm just terrific at Monopoly. I'm just really good at it. But that's not the real trick. The real trick was when people left that survey, they had to stand in a waiting room alone. And in this waiting room, there's a counter with a little glass jar of candy on it and a little sign that says, like, this candy is only for kids or something like this. I may be paraphrasing. The people who got the head start at Monopoly and won were, for some reason, far more likely to just grab a handful of candy because they thought no one was there.
So that's almost like isn't that a little bit amoral? Like the idea of trying to put one over on, the rules?
The idea, was that their encounter, brief and fictional as it was, as being a 1%er at Monopoly, had changed their behavior to be less moral.
I'm a winner.
Right. I'm a winner. These kids can get more candy somewhere else.
But Ben, that does also kind of bring up a question around this notion of power past a certain threshold. Like, are you able to be a quote unquote success and maintain or increase that power without stomping on the little guys, without like being a villain?
Mm-hmm. It really depends upon arguably the system in which you live, and what that system incentivizes or rewards. And the degree of autonomy you can possess within a given system. Do you follow your own motivations and agency, irrespective of norms, beliefs, and expectations of others? Can you resist being a blind follower while also not violating the social compact? What we mean is, can you be your own person without also being seen as rude, hostile, petty, dismissive, so on? All the bad loser stuff.
The brat stuff.
Is that the brat stuff?
Yes. The brat stuff is like, a lot of that.
I mean, okay, because if we take these 6 traits together, right, guys, it feels pretty self-affirming to hear these concepts and think, oh, yeah, holy baloney, that's me. There's nothing wrong with with having that observation or that feeling, because it's almost certain that every single person has exhibited these traits to one degree or another at some point. Because let's face it, otherwise the world would be full of boring assholes. I just wanted to use the phrase boring assholes.
I love it. And I don't love it.
Do you love ad breaks?
They're okay. They get the job done.
Well, we've got some news for you and us. We're back. So you guys tell me, it feels like the real argument is that people we think are cool are instead more likely to exhibit these traits for longer stretches, perhaps to a greater degree.
Yeah. Why do we hold, let's say, certain actors who are now in their 70s, like, as being some of the coolest people on the planet? Like, you know, who hold a lot of these traits.
And why is it definitely James Dean, the one that we always go back to?
Yeah, but he didn't have a cause, right? No, wait, is that the right? No,
that's the right one. Yeah.
Okay,
all
right.
Leather jacket, though, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm imagining like Bill Murray or some of these folks that just, you know, they have that coolness thing, that thing where they're like just out doing things and just being themselves, man. That guy's just himself. I just see that because they've been doing it for so long, perhaps, as what we're talking about here.
Keanu Reeves is another example that I think would line up with that.
There's this other word, an Italian phrase that comes from the 16th century, or term, I guess, that comes from the 16th century that describes cool in a way that I think almost sums some of this stuff up. It's sprezzatura, and I'd never heard of that before. sprezzatura. And this was used to describe some dude. I don't know. I have no idea who this person is. Baldassare Castiglione. And this is in 1528. And it's described as, quote, a certain nonchalance to conceal all art and to make what one does or say appear to be without effort. That makes sense to me, right? When you see someone cool, it's as though they're not having to do anything and yet they're doing everything.
Well, an Italian cool is still very much a hallmark of cool in terms of fashion, in terms of that effortless style, right?
Yeah. It's part of why Dylan, the Tennessee Pal, is so cool. It's part of why our friend Alex Williams is so cool.
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot, Dylan, but I think you've got that. What's that Italian word you just taught us, Matt?
Sprezza.
Sprezzatura.
Sprezzatura. This is also leading into something else. The James Dean example is interesting because in this study, they found that people who saw photographs of James Dean rated him less cool when there was a photo of him not smiling. But if he's smiling a little, he seems more cool. It's strange because it seems like there's a note of positivity in some cultures that's inherent to the idea of cool. But to your point, Matt, it reminds me of that insult that I think is more common in Australia, maybe calling someone a tryhard. They're putting in too much effort, and that makes it uncool. I don't know. Like, there's also this idea of being cool also shows a tendency to avoid kind of putting others down in a search for power or validation, like you were mentioning earlier, Noel. And the tricky part is humans still don't understand themselves. So the science of personality is still a very messy bowl of Venn diagram spaghetti. That leads to the other question. The one I think, I don't know about you guys, but I'm still kind of grappling with, is being cool the same thing as being good?
No, they found that it's not. It's linked though, right?
It's linked. But
yeah, good is very interesting. Generosity is something that I was wondering, like, how it was seen in this study, because I've always, personally, I've always imagined that as being a good, like perhaps the good trait, being generous with one's time and everything. Does that fall in here anywhere in the study?
Yeah, I think to your point, it's wrapped up in there with stuff like being conscientious, being the traits they found that were most associated with being good were being kind, calm, traditional, secure, and conscientious. But I feel like generosity is wrapped up in being conscientious and kind. And look, yes, it is correct. They found that cool and good they have overlap, but they are not the same thing. And one of the best examples, going back to fictional characters, think of some of your favorite characters from fiction. The Judge from Blood Meridian, or Anton Sugar from No Country for Old Men. Anton is cool as but he's by no means good.
Well, yeah, but that's funny you should say that, but I would argue that he's more cool in that old school sense, and that he is collected and emotionless and dispassionate. But that haircut, not cool, man. Not cool.
But that coin toss conversation.
Oh, that's true.
That's like a short film all its own.
Oh, it's fantastic. No question about it. You're going to see this kind of thing in a lot of Coen brothers villains. They have a certain code or a certain, like, because again, part of being cool is like being your own thing and not being at the mercy of trends and the whims of society. And you're going to see a lot of that in Coen brothers characters, villains in particular. I think that's a great point.
Well, hey, Darth Vader absolutely slaps, but it would kind of suck to hang out with him.
Yeah. What about Johnny Cage, as portrayed by Carl Urban in Mortal Kombat 2 that's about to come out?
I feel like that would be a good. Yeah, he is. It's the trailer is all about him, by the way. We might be looking at main characters.
There's also a new Street Fighter movie that's in development. The cast is odd. But Johnny Cage is cool. If Nicolas Cage is cool, you know.
But see, Butcher is one of the coolest characters I've ever seen. So, I mean,
don't mess with his dog. Yeah, this list goes on, and especially here in the West, we love an anti-hero, right? Like the Butcher, or like Boba Fett, or like the Mandalorian, right? More recently, this study seems, and related studies that it's built upon, seem to validate the idea that there is this big difference. Some cool traits like extroversion, hedonism, and actually autonomy were not necessarily seen as good across the world. Like Anton in No Country for Old Men is highly autonomous. He's also highly not a good person, which is a scientific term we just made up. You are being highly not a good person right now, dog.
Well, he is a cool guy because he does not look at explosions.
Right. That's one of the traits. He's also a bad guy because he drinks milk on camera.
True.
Yeah.
True. Classic trope.
Classic.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, we talked about this. There's a certain like connection to like not having had the love of a mother that is sort of evidenced by this love of drinking milk.
I've read some like similar analysis about that, and I could totally see it happening. I also wonder, I don't know, it'd be great to get like Jordan Peele and Quentin Tarantino and the Coens in a room together and just say, all right, guys, what's up with your milk villains? And just see what they have to say. They would have a great conversation, but it would be like lightning striking over and over.
And the McPoyles?
Foot fetish talk into the mix, and it's a party.
The McPoyles also, yeah. Oh, yeah, is there a difference between warm milk? Oh, my gosh. Anyway, look, it seems that there is a stable core agreement about what makes someone cool across the planet, but cultures do have some variance in the level of importance they assign to one trait or another. And this is where we see interesting exceptions. Like maybe Nigeria is a great place to start.
Nigeria was the only country where autonomy didn't really factor in as far as cool was concerned, or uncool, in fact. Pizzuti and his team concluded that this meant that individuality overall wasn't seen as cool. And I would also be interested in seeing how, a study like this would react to communist countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or anything with more collectivist social DNA, right? Because we, like that proverb that we mentioned pretty often in the recent past, you can argue that a lot of traditional cultures in that part of the world are much more group oriented, right? It'd also be interesting to see this study in Japan, right? Another culture that places great value on the collective good and homogeneity. It's interesting, right? And we have to be, the researchers here do a phenomenal job of not falling into like stereotypes or othering. They're just asking the questions and saying, well, can we connect the dot here? And if so, what does that mean? South African respondents believed that cool was incredibly distinct from good. Cool guys are not necessarily the good guys in South Africa, according to this study. I guess shout out to Diane Wood. But I don't know. Are they cool anymore?
I don't know, man. They had some
They had
cancellation.
some terrible stuff, right?
Yeah, not good. Like the way they were treating, I believe,
Children.
Children,
Yeah.
that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Legal guardians mistreating children, allegations of sexual abuse.
Now, we haven't followed up on this. There may have been updates, but that is what I remember from a few years back.
Yeah. And in South Africa, being hedonistic, powerful, adventurous, and autonomous was seen as much, much more cool than good, which indicates to the researchers that those traits are more likely to be seen as not generally good in that culture. We can't trust powerful people or hedonistic people. Adventurous people are dangerous to know. Autonomous people are rule breakers, that kind of thing.
It's an interesting question, though. I mean, this idea of like that Venn diagram overlap between cool and good. I think it all depends on the metric with which you use to gauge coolness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How you frame the question, right? How you define this somewhat undefinable thing. And there are obviously important points about this study that the researchers readily admit. They say, yes, we're using tons of proven personality-based metrics and studies of the past. We're looking deep into earlier research in the field of psychology, field of sociology. But ultimately, we are asking people to self-report their own opinions, right? And we're also not asking all the, let's check the world clock here. We're not asking all the 8.238 billion people on the planet for their own take. You know what I mean? So 6,000 people over 5 years is a lot, and it's very thorough research, but it's not everybody. So they're very conscious of that.
You guys, I just got a flash of that Detroiters episode about the hogs, about the motorcycles. Do you remember this?
Oh,
yes, I need to dig into that show more. I've only seen the first maybe 3 episodes.
It's so great.
Amazing actor who just passed is in it from the Cosby Show. Malcolm Jamal Warner. Thank you, Dylan. Yeah, yes. He was in that episode. And
I do remember that episode, actually, now that you mention it. That's one of the ones I saw.
I'm thinking of his character, and he's considered by the main characters of that show as being so cool because he rides a motorcycle. He can just go wherever he wants. He can go fly to Dubai when he wants to. He doesn't have to work all the time. And it's making me think about these concepts of cool and whether or not it is, or if you guys think it is, linked to wealth, because it feels like a lot of these attributes aren't necessarily like directly, you don't have to be wealthy to have them, but if you are wealthy and you have enough income or enough liquid assets to just go do what you want to do at all times and be open and happy and all of these things.
Jet setting is a term that gets thrown around a lot associated with that kind of cool, right?
Maybe. I guess. I just don't know if that, in this way, we think society is linking that here, because it does feel like it might be to me. And then I think about someone who is so focused on attempting to better where they stand from a wealth perspective, and how it would be really hard to hold a lot of these attributes just on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's very valid because money provides agency, and previous studies have proven that up to a certain income threshold, which we'd have to adjust for inflation, but it used to be like something like $70,000 plus, up to a certain level of income in the US, money does make you happier because it makes your life much easier. And it also reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You get to a certain degree, it's not going to automatically make you cool, but it's going to give you agency to engage with more of those behaviors. When you're not struggling to simply survive, then you do have the ability, or again, the agency to be more open, or to say, yeah, I'll go with you to that flamenco show because I don't, in fact, work 3 jobs and have 4 kids that I'm trying to put through college one day.
No, being cool is certainly a luxury, one could argue. I think it's accurate, you know? I mean, that's not to say that you can't work a straight job and have kids and still be open and a thoughtful listener and interested.
Yeah,
those things do not disappear, but the full package, if that's sort of like how you define yourself, it's not always easy to balance all of those things.
Well, let me put in a counterfactual real quick as we're exploring this. Remember the episode Mac Day from Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Mac's cousin is the coolest guy who's ever been on the show. And he's not wealthy, He's just more accepting of himself, but he does all the cool things and has the vibe that Mac has desperately wanted his entire life. And he is not, again, he is not by any means a man of means. That's weird, but we'll keep it. All right. We're working live. And I think we see that there's a multi-dimensional thing at play here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Because it is possible to look cool and act cool without those things. It just, for some reason, seems to help a lot when you've just got money to throw around. It makes me think of the, guys, you're going to have to help me, the Macklemore song about going to the thrift store.
I'm going to pop some tags.
Yes.
$20 in his pocket.
But that concept of appearing, you can appear as cool as you want to be and you don't have to have a bunch of money to do it, which, those kinds of cultural concepts that bleed in, and then just, then for at least a moment in time, it's thought, oh, wait, it's not cool to actually spend a crap ton of money on what I'm wearing.
Right.
And it just makes me wonder how that ebb and flow actually occurs over time with how much influence wealth actually has on the concept of what cool is.
Yeah, it didn't end up well for the French royalty.
Exactly.
Whoops.
Let them eat cake or no, which I think it's no. But I'll tell you, I think the coolest person in Hollywood is Keanu Reeves, because he has that effortless cool. He plays in a band because he loves it, not because it makes him a bunch of money. He gives a lot of his earnings to charity. He apparently just lives in a small-ish kind of modest house and doesn't throw his money around in any kind of self-aggrandizing way. I would argue that he exudes every one of these things. Also someone that's experienced personal tragedy and has risen to the occasion and is just kind of an inspiring person.
Well, let's talk about Amy Poehler going on a podcast talking about her CPAP machine like it's not a big deal. What
Love
up?
It. Love that episode.
Or
She's
Christina
great.
Applegate, who also has a podcast talking about her struggles in a very human and erudite way. We know from these studies that there are many more questions ahead, but from what we can see here, their two primary arguments are that the definition of cool has not just changed, but has become more consistent across culture. And then their other argument is that being cool does not necessarily make one good. And they've made really solid arguments for both of these ideas. Part of why cool has apparently become a little more consistent across human civilization is, I would argue, due to the rise of global communication. You are encountering more things that you may not have encountered in ages past, and people are starting to kind of coalesce toward a global consensus of cool, which means it'll evolve over time.
Well, one thing that kind of bums me, we talked about COVID earlier and how that study was kind of taken during COVID. And I think it's a pretty easy argument to make that COVID also reshuffled the deck as far as what is cool, because like so much of the younger current generation that's defining a lot of these things came up during COVID. So a lot of internet meme absurdist kind of things and slang and stuff, a lot of that stuff was birthed kind of during COVID. But one thing that I think is unfortunate in that generation, and maybe this is common in past generations as well, is this sense of cringe, this sense of like trying isn't cool. Like showing that you're excited about something isn't cool, that like putting yourself out on a limb to follow your dreams isn't cool. There's this wonderful poet and author named Ocean Wong, who you may be familiar with. I saw a really excellent internet video that they did recently, talking about this very thing and how it's with their students, they teach that they're constantly running into this sense of they don't want to be perceived as earnest. They don't want to be perceived as trying. And I think that sucks.
Yeah. Especially because enthusiasm is contagious, right?
So is negativity, and so is this like guarded sense of I don't want to be seen as caring about stuff.
Yeah, personality and vibe is contagious. This leads us to another question that is probably on the mind of several of us listening tonight. How can I be cool? All right, here's the skinny on it. The specifics are going to differ depending on your own social groups, right? Like whatever uniform, ideology, etc. But you and everyone else you know has definitely exercised these quote unquote cool personality traits more than once. And without sounding too hallmarky or pathetic or whatever, one great first step is in learning to be cool with and to yourself and being autonomous enough to avoid compromising that. It reminds me of this excellent poem called If by Rudyard Kipling. If you haven't had a chance to read it, please do so. And we'd love to hear similar stuff you enjoy, similar poems in the same vein. Have you guys read that poem? If I feel like
look at this cool guy sharing his poetry.
No,
we heard about this earlier.
We've talked about this. It's come up because it is. I think it's very applicable in a lot of situations. I do recall it being such.
It's a great poem, especially with what we're talking about now. And we'd love to hear more stuff along that vein that you enjoy. And another question, tell me what you guys think about this. What about figuring out what you like to see in other people, asking yourself what makes you like spending time around them, and then ask yourself how you can be the kind of person that you would want to hang out with. I think that's the kind of self-peace that's way better than chasing cool.
Ben, I think it's related, but there is also a 1968 film starring Malcolm McDowell called If, and it is about, it's almost got like a Catcher in the Rye kind of vibe to it. It's sort of about this like group of prep school students and this notion of like being in or outside of society and like the norms and what is or is not cool. And it goes in some dark directions, but it's a very, very good film. And I think the title is directly referencing that poem.
I haven't seen that. I'd love to check that out, man. Thanks for the recommendation. Big Malcolm McDowell fans over here, by the way, folks. You can check him out. He's technically, this is an old joke we have, he's technically a coworker of ours.
Yeah. Check out 12 Ghosts.
Yes, check out 12 Ghosts, which you EP'd in partnership with Aaron Mahnke and Nicholas Stokowski, right?
Yes, sir. Check it out. Guys, I've got a list of things that are cool and not cool from Chloe McDonnell, writing for The Guardian.
Well, if Chloe's got it, then let's hear it.
This is huge news.
Chloe is the epitome of cool.
Wait, but she's the one who said Labubu's are no longer cool.
Chloe knows. Not cool. Chat GPT. Pretending not to be on the pen when you are. I guess that's weight loss stuff. I think it's weight loss stuff.
No, that's what it is, on the pen. Yeah.
Cowboy boots. Labubus. Using corporate jargon outside of work, like saying Q1. Talking about sleep scores. Giant adult sippy cups. LinkedIn. Birkin bags. And including your Myers-Briggs in your dating bio.
What about Merkins? Are Merkins cool, Matt?
I have no idea.
What does Chloe say about Merkins?
What about Jerkins? We need to get Chloe on the horn.
What is Merkins, Jerkin, all the stuff. Not as in Jerkins.
Right.
Yeah.
Gherkins? The jerkin is Jerkins like a leather
baby oil
bib.
Right? I don't. Oh God, no! I don't know. What is cool?
What is cool?
Being a member of a library, good service anywhere.
This sounds like propaganda for the library system.
I know. Asking questions. Hey, that's cool.
Yes.
That is definitely one of the coolest things you can do. Restaurants where you don't have to shout at each other to be heard. Something called Cupros, maybe colorful toothbrushes. I don't know what that is.
I don't know about that either.
Ordering an object to view at the V&A East Storehouse. What does that mean?
This sounds like just things that this person enjoys.
Chloe wants it in with these toothbrushes and with this V&A thing.
I don't know about this. I was on board with Chloe until, I don't know.
Not being a TV snob. That's cool. Using lamps rather than the big light in any room you're in.
Agreed.
And being okay with aging.
Okay.
I love aging. I think aging kicks ass.
I think this is also, first off, thank you, Matt. And thank you, Chloe. I think this also shows us that there is still a subjective nature to these, especially when our correspondent there is naming physical objects, right? That's a case of yucking a yum. Chasing cool never really works. It is simply a convenient lie corporations serve up to us every day, and it does serious damage to everyone involved. I think the real key to coolness is an internal steadying. You don't have to travel to Nepal to be cool, right? As a matter of fact, it might sound, depending on how you talk about it, it might not make you sound very cool at all, right? We have to find our own peace, free of other variables. I don't know. It feels like that's kind of fortune cookie-esque, but it does also feel true.
Yeah, man. Cool.
Agreed. Cool, Daddy-O. Just, what's that song from West Side Story? The Sharks and the Jets, be cool, boy.
When you're a jet, you're a jet all the way.
That's one too. That's one too. But there's be cool, boy, and like snapping and all that stuff.
Oh,
I forgot that one. I think, wow. As a fan of musicals, I'm starting to realize.
It's just called Cool.
Okay.
From your first cigarette to your last dying day.
No,
Oh, God, more
that's-
lyrics. They're coming back to me.
But that's the one song I know. As a fan
It's
of
true,
musicals,
yeah.
there's so many musicals where in my head I know maybe 3 songs from them.
Boy, crazy boy, get cool, boy. Got a rocket in your pocket? Keep coolly cool, boy.
What's a rocket
Don't
in
get
your
hot.
pocket?
It's a gun, I guess.
Oh.
Don't get hot, because, man, you got some high times ahead. Take it slow, and daddy-o, you can live it up and die in bed.
All right.
Be cool.
Sounds pretty cool to me.
Step aside, Shakespeare. That's probably the best place to end this episode. The idea of being cool with yourself. And we wish you luck on your own journey. We do have to say, one last thing. The Study Cool People is freely available online. There's a lot more detail to it than we can address this evening, but we can say it's incredibly cool of Todd Pizzuti, Caleb Warren, and Jinjae Chen to make it free to the public. Nice one, dudes. Nice. We also think it's supremely cool that you chose to spend some of your time with us on this episode. We're looking forward to hearing from you, folks. Fellow conspiracy realists, what's the coolest thing you've done or witnessed? Have you sent us an email or reached out yet? Because it'd be pretty cool if you did.
Breeze it, buzz it, easy does it. Turn off the juice, boy, and head on over to Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on X, FKA Twitter, and on YouTube with video content galore for your perusing enjoyment. It's pretty cool. You can also find that handle on Facebook with our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy. On Instagram and TikTok, however, we're Conspiracy Stuff Show.
You can give us a call. We are 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, let us know where you get your laboo-boos. And also give yourself a cool nickname and let us know if we can use your name and message on the air. If you want to send us an email, we are
The entities that read each piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware, yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. To learn more about weird stuff that was historically cool and looks super duper strange now, check out Ridiculous History's upcoming episode on Fabergé eggs. In the meantime, walk out here in the dark. Meet us at the crossroads. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.